I took the bus as far as it would go, then walked the last 2 miles to the Still Pines Motor Lodge. Rain had been threatening all afternoon, and it finally started coming down when I was about half a mile out. Not a downpour, just enough to soak through my jacket and make my duffel bag feel twice as heavy. The place looked exactly like the pictures online, a single-story L-shaped building with maybe 20 rooms, faded blue doors with brass numbers. The neon sign out front had a few letters burned out, so it just read, Still as Moat L. Real promising start. I pushed through the glass door into the lobby. The smell hit me first, old carpet and pine sol with something musty underneath, like someone had been cleaning the same stain for 20 years. A bell dinged when I came in, and an old guy looked up from behind the desk. "You Reynolds?" he asked. "Yeah, Patrick Reynolds." I set my duffel on the floor. It made a wet sound on the linoleum. "Kai Graves, owner." He didn't offer to shake hands, which was fine by me. He looked about 60-something, balding on top with gray hair combed over, wire glasses, the kind of guy who'd been wearing the same style clothes since 1985. "Thanks for the opportunity," I said. He grunted. "Got your room ready. Number 8. It's part of the compensation package." "Appreciate it." He reached under the counter and pulled out a ring of keys. There had to be at least 30 of them, all different sizes. Some looked old enough to open a treasure chest. "These open everything on the property," he said, sliding them across the counter. "Don't lose them." "I won't." Then he pulled out a black 3-ring binder, thick with pages, and set it next to the keys. "This is the most important part of your job," he said. "Everything you need to know is in here. Follow these instructions exactly. That's your only responsibility as night manager." I picked up the binder. It was heavier than it looked. "What about check-ins, maintenance, that kind of thing?" "It's all in the binder. Read it tonight. Twice." He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. "First week's pay in advance." I took the envelope, surprised at the weight of cash inside. "Thanks. I handle day shift, 8 to 8. You're 8 to 8 nights. Weekends, too. You get Wednesdays off." "Got it." He looked at me for a long moment, like he was trying to decide if I was worth the trouble. "Any questions?" I had about 100, but I just said, "Not yet." "Good." He grabbed his jacket from a hook on the wall. "Room 8 key is on that ring. Blue tag. Your quarters are basic but functional. Microwave, mini fridge, hot plate. Bathroom's clean." "That's all I need." He nodded once and headed for the door. "Read the binder," he said, and then he was gone. I stood there for a minute, listening to the rain outside and the hum of the vending machine in the corner. Then I picked up my duffel and the keys and headed to room 8. The room was exactly what he'd described. Basic, but clean. Queen bed, dresser, TV that might have been new when Clinton was president. The bathroom had one of those combination tub showers with a plastic curtain. The mini fridge hummed in the corner next to a microwave that looked newer than the TV, at least. I unpacked my stuff. Didn't take long since everything I owned fit in one duffel, then sat on the bed and opened the binder. The first page was a typed note. Night manager instructions. Still Pines Motor Lodge follow exactly. I flipped to the next page. It was a numbered list of rules. 1. Check-in hours are from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., no exceptions. 2. Never give out room 3. If a guest asks for room 3 specifically, say it's under renovation. 3. If the phone rings at 2:17 a.m., let it ring exactly 3 times, then answer. Say only, "Still Pines, how may I direct your call?" Hang up after 30 seconds regardless of the response. 4. Never acknowledge the boy with the red backpack. I stopped reading. What the hell did that mean? Never acknowledge what boy? I read it again, then kept going. 5. If a guest in room 10 complains about noise, apologize, but do not investigate. 6. Rooms must be cleaned within 1 hour of checkout. No exceptions. 7. If a guest asks about the hiking trails behind the property, provide the map in drawer B only. 8. The ice machine requires maintenance every 3rd day. Follow procedure in Appendix C. The list went on for pages. Some rules seemed normal. Cleaning procedures, checkout policies. Others made no sense at all. There was a whole section about what to do if someone requested the special rate. Direct them to the blue brochure and do not make eye contact, and another about proper maintenance of the pine trees around the property. Never trim branches between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. I flipped through the appendices, diagrams of the property, maintenance schedules, a section labeled Guest Anomalies that included detailed instructions for dealing with everything from guests who arrive with no luggage to guests who speak only in questions. By the time I finished reading, it was dark outside. I read through the whole thing again, like Kai had instructed. It didn't make any more sense the second time. I wondered what happened to the previous night manager. The binder had a few handwritten notes in the margins, things like check twice and not 3 minutes, 3 rings. Someone had underlined the part about the boy with the red backpack 3 times. The first night on the job, nobody checked in. I sat at the front desk from 8 to midnight, then locked the front door like the binder said and spent the rest of the night watching the security monitors in the back office. The place had 8 cameras covering the parking lot, lobby, and hallways. Nothing moved except a raccoon that wandered through around 3 a.m. I read the binder again, twice more actually. The second night was the same. No guests, no calls. I brought my laptop and watched some movies I'd downloaded. Every hour I did the property walkthrough exactly like the binder. Specified. Lobby, east wing, west wing, parking lot, back to lobby. Check all doors. Note any lights that need replacing. Listen for any sounds coming from room 3. Room 3 was empty. I checked. The door was unlocked and the room looked like any other. Bed, dresser, bathroom. Nothing special about it at all. By the 3rd night, I was starting to wonder if the place ever had any guests. The register showed the last check-in was 2 weeks ago. Someone named Evelyn Tran in room 15. She'd stayed one night. I was grateful for the job, though. After losing my warehouse position and then my apartment, sleeping in my car for 3 weeks had made this place look like the Ritz. The room was dry and warm. The job was easy. The pay was cash. I could build up some savings, maybe get back on my feet. Still, I kept thinking about those rules. The boy with the red backpack. Room 3. The 2:17 a.m. phone call that hadn't come. I wondered what would happen when it did. Night 3. I was on my 3rd night at Still Pines when I found the coin. It happened during my 2 a.m. walkthrough, same routine as the nights before. Check the ice machine, vending area, then walk the exterior perimeter. No guests had checked in yet, so it was just me and the empty rooms. The ice machine was humming away like normal when I spotted something in the corner by the wall. Just a dull glint catching the overhead light. I bent down and picked it up without thinking much about it. It was a coin, not a quarter or anything I recognized right away. About the size of a $50 but thinner, with tarnished edges that looked almost green. The face was worn down so I couldn't make out what was stamped on it. I turned it over in my hand a few times. Probably something a guest had dropped a while back. I pocketed it and finished my rounds. Nothing unusual outside, just the same empty parking lot, the same woods behind the building, the same flickering exterior lights that Kai kept saying he'd fix. I headed back to the front desk and settled in. Around 3 a.m. I was flipping through the binder again, trying to memorize all the rules. That's when I noticed the coin in my pocket had gotten cold. Not just cool, ice cold, like it had been sitting in a freezer. I pulled it out and set it on the desk. The metal looked darker somehow, and when I leaned closer, I caught a whiff of something that made me pull back. Gasoline. The coin reeked of it, strong enough that I wondered how I hadn't noticed it before. What the hell? I muttered, poking it with my pen. The smell got stronger. I picked up the coin between 2 fingers, and it felt wrong against my skin. Too cold, almost burning. My first thought was to put it back where I found it, but something about it made me uneasy, like it wasn't supposed to be here. The lobby phone rang. I jumped, nearly dropping the coin. The phone never rang at night. According to the check-in log, we hadn't had a guest in 2 weeks. I glanced at the clock. 3:17 a.m., not the 2:17 call mentioned in the binder. I hesitated, then answered. "Still Pines Motor Lodge. How can I help you?" Static filled the line, a harsh crackling that made me pull the receiver away from my ear. Then a voice cut through, distorted and low. "Fuck up again and you die." I froze, the phone pressed against my ear. "I'm sorry. Who is this?" More static, then nothing. The line went dead. My hand was shaking when I put the receiver down. I looked at the coin on the desk, still giving off that gasoline smell. Something about it felt connected to the call, like I'd broken a rule I didn't know existed. I didn't want to touch it again, but I couldn't leave it there. I grabbed a tissue from the box under the counter and wrapped the coin up. Then I walked outside, around to the back of the motel, where the woods started. The night was quiet except for the distant sound of the highway. I stood at the edge of the trees, feeling the weight of the coin through the tissue. Without letting myself think about it too much, I threw it as hard as I could into the darkness. Heard it land somewhere in the underbrush. "Good riddance," I muttered, wiping my hands on my jeans. I went back inside, locked the door, and tried to focus on my work, but I kept thinking about that voice, about dying, about what I might have fucked up. I checked the binder again. Nothing about coins, nothing about phone calls at 3:17. I'd followed every rule so far, hadn't gone near room 3, hadn't given it out, hadn't acknowledged anyone with a red backpack, not that I'd seen anyone at all. By the time my shift ended at 8 a.m., I'd almost convinced myself I'd overreacted. Maybe it was just a prank call. Maybe the coin was nothing special, just my imagination running wild in the quiet of the night. I walked to room 8, ready to crash for a few hours before my next shift. That's when I saw it. The coin, balanced perfectly on the doorknob of room 3. I stopped in the middle of the walkway, staring at it. The morning light caught the edge, making it look almost normal. But I knew it was the same one, the same tarnished edges, the same worn face. I didn't touch it, didn't go near it. Just walked to my room, went inside, and locked the door behind me. Sat on the edge of my bed and tried to make sense of what was happening. I didn't sleep well that day. Night 4. I was already on edge when I started my shift the next night. The coin was gone from room 3's doorknob when I'd left my room that evening. I didn't know if Kai had removed it or if it had disappeared on its own. I didn't ask. The first few hours passed quietly. No guests, no phone calls. Just me at the front desk, reading the binder for the 100th time, looking for any mention of coins or threats or things that shouldn't move on their own. It was around midnight when I felt it, that sensation of being watched. I looked up from the desk, scanning the empty lobby. Nothing seemed out of place. The vending machine hummed in the corner. The wall clock ticked steadily. Then, I saw him through the window. A boy. Standing in the parking lot, maybe 20 feet from the lobby door. He wore a red backpack. Rule number 14. Never acknowledge the boy with the red backpack. Do not look at him directly. Do not speak to him. Do not gesture to him. Act as if he is not there. I immediately dropped my gaze to the desk, my heart pounding. I hadn't expected the rule to actually come up. Hadn't really believed there would be a boy with a red backpack. I kept my head down, but I could feel him out there. After a minute, I risked looking at the window itself, not at him directly, but at his reflection in the glass. He was small, maybe 12 or 13. The backpack hung heavy on his thin frame, and his mouth was moving rapidly, like he was talking, but I couldn't hear anything. I looked away, focusing on the guest registry. My hands were shaking as I pretended to check something in the book. When I finally worked up the nerve to glance at the window again, the reflection showed an empty parking lot. He was gone. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding, closed my eyes for a second, tried to tell myself it wasn't a big deal. Just follow the rules. That's all I had to do. The rest of the night passed without incident. I did my walkthroughs, checked the ice machine, no coins this time, monitored the security cameras. Normal night manager stuff. But I kept thinking about the boy, about his moving mouth, about what he might have been saying. Night 5. He came back the next night, earlier this time, around 10 p.m. I spotted him as I was adjusting the blinds behind the front desk. The boy with the red backpack was standing closer to the lobby now, maybe 10 feet from the door. Same position, just standing there, watching. I quickly looked away, focusing on my work. But I couldn't help stealing glances at his reflection. His mouth was still moving, faster now, more urgent. I still couldn't hear him, but there was something desperate in the way his jaw worked, the way his head tilted slightly forward. I wanted to go outside, to ask what he wanted, to help him. But Rule 14 was clear. He stayed for about 20 minutes before disappearing. I didn't see him leave. One moment his reflection was there, the next it wasn't. That night, I dreamed about coins balanced on doorknobs, about phones ringing at odd hours, about boys with red backpacks whose voices couldn't be heard. Night 6. The third night he appeared, he was even closer, standing just outside the lobby door, no more than 5 feet away. I could see his breath fogging the glass. I kept my head down, my eyes on the desk, but I was aware of him the entire time. The red backpack visible in my peripheral vision, the shape of him through the foggy glass. This time, I noticed something I hadn't before. The backpack wasn't just red. It had a logo on it, the same logo that was on the Still Pine staff shirt Kai had given me, the stylized pine tree. I wanted to look up, to see his face clearly, to understand what was happening, but I remembered the phone call, remembered the voice. Fuck up again, and you die. So I stared at the desk until my eyes burned, shuffled papers, checked the registry, anything to keep from looking directly at him. When I finally risked glancing at the reflection again, I saw his hand pressed against the glass. Small fingers splayed out, pressing hard enough that the tips were white. And his mouth was still moving, faster and more frantic than before. I looked away. When I looked back, he was gone. But the handprint remained on the glass, slowly fading as the fog of his breath disappeared. Night 7. By the 5th night, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Even when the boy wasn't there, I felt eyes on me during my walkthroughs, in the supply closet, when I used the bathroom. I kept checking over my shoulder, kept my back to walls whenever possible, jumped at every sound. He appeared just after midnight, standing directly outside the lobby window, his face inches from the glass. His breath fogged a perfect circle. I kept my eyes down, focused on the binder in front of me, but I could feel him there, could sense his desperation. The red backpack was pressed against the window now. I could see it clearly in my peripheral vision. Something about it seemed familiar in a way I couldn't place, like I'd seen it before I ever came to Still Pines. His mouth moved in the reflection, forming the same words over and over. I still couldn't hear him, but I was starting to think I could read his lips. Help. Me. Please. I gripped the edge of the desk until my knuckles turned white, kept my eyes down, followed the rules. The boy stayed longer this time, almost an hour, just standing there, mouthing those words. When he finally left, I found myself shaking. Not from fear, but from the effort it took not to respond. I did my 2 a.m. walkthrough on autopilot, checking rooms, checking locks, checking the ice machine, When I got back to the lobby, I noticed something on the desk that hadn't been there before. The coin. It sat there, tarnished and ordinary looking, but I knew what it was, knew what it meant. I didn't touch it, just stared at it until my vision blurred. Then I went back to work, the coin sitting there between us like a threat, like a promise. I felt him watching me the rest of the night, even when I couldn't see him, even when I was alone. His eyes on me, his silent words. Help me, please. It was my 8th night at Still Pines. I'd started getting into a routine. Check the security cameras, flip through the binder, do my walkthroughs. Nothing much had happened since I'd seen the boy with the red backpack. The coin hadn't shown up again either. I was starting to wonder if maybe I'd imagined the whole thing. I was behind the front desk around 10:30, reading through the binder for probably the 20th time, when the front door opened. The bell dinged, and I looked up to see a man in a gray suit walking in. He had this neat salt and pepper hair and wore shiny leather shoes that clicked against the lobby floor. First guest in almost 3 weeks. "Evening," I said, closing the binder. "Welcome to Still Pines." The man approached the desk with quick steps. He didn't smile. "Easton Pierce," he said, pulling out a wallet. "Corporate office." He flipped open a laminated ID badge with the Still Pines logo and his photo. It looked official enough. "I didn't know we had a corporate visit scheduled," I said. "That's the point of surprise inspections." He tucked the badge away. "You're the new night manager?" "Patrick Reynolds. Started last week." He nodded like he already knew. "I need to inspect room 3. My stomach dropped. Rule 6. In the binder, room 3 is unavailable indefinitely. Do not rent it out or open it for any reason. "I'm sorry, sir, but room 3 is under renovation," I said, trying to sound casual. "Has been for a while now." Pierce raised an eyebrow. "Under renovation? That's not what our records show." He set his briefcase on the counter and clicked it open. "I have the paperwork right here. Room 3 needs to be inspected tonight." He pulled out a folder and slid some documents toward me. They had Still Pines letterhead and what looked like Kai's signature at the bottom. The paper felt real between my fingers, and the ink was definitely not photocopied. "Mr. Graves didn't mention anything about this," I said. "Mr. Graves doesn't micromanage every corporate inspection." Pierce closed his briefcase. "Now, I have 3 other properties to visit tonight, so if you'd be so kind as to show me to room 3. I hesitated. The binder was pretty clear about room 3. But this guy had ID, paperwork with Kai's signature, and seemed to know what he was talking about. Plus, he was getting impatient. "I'll need to call Mr. Graves first," I said, reaching for the phone. Pierce sighed. "It's nearly 11. Do you really want to wake him up to confirm something he already signed off on?" He tapped the signature on the paper. "I understand you're new, but this is standard procedure." I looked at the phone, then back at the paperwork. The signature did look like Kai's from the employment forms I'd signed. "I can show you the room," I said finally, grabbing the master keys. "But I've been told it's not in good shape." "That's why I'm here," Pierce said, picking up his briefcase. "Lead the way." I walked him down the hallway, past rooms 1 and 2. My palms were sweating as we approached room 3. The door looked the same as all the others, faded blue with brass numbers, but something about it felt different. Heavier, maybe. "Has anyone been inside since you started?" Pierce asked. "No, sir. Like I said, it's under renovation." He looked at the door, then at me. "Well, let's have a look." I reached for my keys, but Pierce was already pulling out his own. "Corporate master," he explained, holding up a key that looked just like mine. He slid it into the lock and turned. The moment the door unlocked, I felt it. A sudden rush of cold air brushed past me, like something invisible had been waiting behind that door and had just escaped. The floorboards creaked under my feet, and the temperature in the hallway dropped about 10 degrees. Pierce didn't seem to notice. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. "Interesting," he muttered, looking around. I stayed in the doorway, not wanting to go in. From what I could see, room 3 looked like a normal motel room. Queen bed, dresser, TV. But something felt off about it. The shadows seemed deeper than they should be, and there was a smell I couldn't place. Not musty or moldy, but something else. Something wrong. "I'll need to examine a few things," Pierce said, setting his briefcase on the bed. "Wait outside. This won't take long." Before I could answer, the door swung shut between us. Not slammed, just closed firmly, like someone had pulled it. I stood there for a second, staring at the blue door, wondering if I should knock. But the binder had been clear about room 3, and I'd already broken that rule. Maybe it was better to let Pierce do whatever he needed to do and get out. I waited in the hallway. 5 minutes passed, then 10. I checked my watch twice, listening for any sound from inside. Nothing. No footsteps, no water running, no drawers opening or closing. Just silence. After 15 minutes, I got worried. I knocked on the door. "Mr. Pierce, everything okay in there?" No answer. I knocked again, louder this time. "Mr. Pierce?" Still nothing. I tried the handle. It was locked. I pulled out my master key and slid it into the lock, but it wouldn't turn. I tried again, wiggling it a bit, but the lock wouldn't budge. The key that opened every door in this place wouldn't open. Room 3. "Mr. Pierce," I called again, pressing my ear to the door. I couldn't hear anything inside. I bent down and looked through the peephole from the outside. All I could see was darkness, not the darkness of a room with the lights off, but a complete, total blackness, like the peephole was filled with ink. I straightened up, my heart pounding. Something was wrong. I pulled out my phone and called Kai's number, but it went straight to voicemail. I left a message explaining what happened, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mr. Graves, this is Patrick. A man from corporate came to inspect room 3. His name's Easton Pierce. He went inside about 20 minutes ago, and now the door's locked and he's not answering. My key won't work. Please call me back." I hung up and stood there for another 10 minutes, knocking occasionally. Pierce never answered. Eventually, I walked back to the front desk and checked the security cameras. The one in the hallway showed me standing outside room 3, knocking on the door. But there was no camera inside the room itself. I spent the rest of my shift checking room 3 every hour. Each time, the door was locked. Each time, no one answered my knocks. Each time, the peephole showed nothing but darkness. When morning came, I was exhausted and confused. Pierce had never come out. His paperwork was still on the front desk, but looking at it now, in the light of day, Kai's signature seemed different somehow. The loops were too tight, the lines too straight. I was washing my face in the employee bathroom when I noticed something in the mirror. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me after the long night. I blinked hard and looked again. My reflection wasn't right. It was me, but not quite. My reflected eyes looked wider than they should be, and my mouth hung slightly open even though I'd closed it. I raised my hand to touch my face, and that's when I saw it. My reflection moved a half-second too late, like it was following me instead of mirroring me. I stepped back from the sink, and my reflection followed after a brief delay. I turned my head, and it turned after me. I felt cold all over, the same cold I'd felt when that door opened. Easton Pierce had gone into room 3 and never come out. And now my reflection wasn't my reflection anymore. I'd been at Still Pines for almost 2 weeks when Evelyn Tran checked in. It was my first actual check-in since I started, and I was kind of excited to have something normal to do. She arrived around 7:30, right as the sun was going down. I heard tires on the gravel outside before she walked in. Average height, auburn hair pulled back, green eyes that noticed everything. She carried just one small suitcase. "Hi, I need a room for tonight." she said. I straightened up at the desk. Of course. Just you? Just me. She placed her driver's license and credit card on the counter. I stayed here a few weeks ago. Room 5, I believe. I checked the computer. She was right. Evelyn Tran, room 5, checked out 16 days ago. I remembered seeing her name in the log during my first few nights. We can put you back in room 5 if you'd like, I said. That would be fine. I ran her card and handed her the key. She took it without touching my fingers, like she was being careful. Checkout is at 11, I said. Let me know if you need anything. She nodded, picked up her suitcase, and walked out. No small talk, no questions about local restaurants. Just in and out. I watched on the security camera as she drove her car, a dark blue Honda, down to room 5 and went inside. I checked the binder again, flipping to the room preparation section. Rule 22. Rooms must be cleaned before sunset on the day of check-in. I looked outside. The sun had just dipped below the tree line. Shit, I muttered. I grabbed the cleaning cart from the supply closet and hurried to room 5. I knocked twice. Ms. Tran? Sorry to bother you, but I need to do a quick room check. Won't take more than 5 minutes. She opened the door, already changed into a plain t-shirt and sweatpants. Is something wrong? Just routine, I said. I apologize for the inconvenience. She stepped aside, watching me closely as I checked the bathroom, changed the towels, and wiped down surfaces. Her suitcase sat unopened on the luggage rack. The room wasn't cleaned before I arrived? She asked. I kept my eyes on my work. It was cleaned earlier, but we have a final inspection policy. She didn't respond, just stood by the window with her arms crossed. I finished as quickly as I could, feeling her eyes on me the whole time. All set, I said, rolling the cart toward the door. Sorry again for the interruption. It's fine. She moved to close the door behind me. Good night. I wheeled the cart back toward the lobby, checking my watch. 8:15. I'd broken Rule 22, but maybe it wasn't a big deal. The room had already been cleaned days ago. This was just a touch-up. I was almost to the lobby when headlights swept across the parking lot. A black SUV pulled in fast, parking crookedly near the entrance. The driver's door flew open and a man got out, leaving the engine running. He was tall, heavy-set, with thinning dark hair and a face that looked like he'd been drinking. He wore a rumpled suit with the tie pulled loose. He pushed through the lobby door hard enough that it banged against the wall. Need a room, he said, slapping his wallet on the counter. I moved behind the desk. Good evening, sir. I'll be happy to help you. Just give me a key. I'm beat. He pulled out a credit card and tossed it on the counter. I picked it up and glanced at the name. Mr. Hall, we'll get you set up right away. How many nights will you be staying? Just tonight. Gotta be in Portland tomorrow. I nodded and started typing. I'll need to see your ID, please. He sighed dramatically but pulled out his driver's license. Bentley Hall, 41, from Seattle. His photo looked a lot more put together than the man standing in front of me. I'm afraid we're fully booked tonight, Mr. Hall, I said, reading from the binder. Rule 8. Never book more than one guest per night. He looked around the empty lobby, then out at the parking lot where only Evelyn's Honda sat. Bullshit, he said. This place is dead. I only see one car out there. We have several reservations coming in later tonight, I lied. I apologize for the inconvenience. I can recommend— Listen, he cut me off, leaning over the counter. I caught the smell of whiskey on his breath. I've been driving for 6 hours. I'm not going anywhere else. Give me a room. I held my ground. Sir, I understand your frustration, but we're fully— He slammed his hand on the counter, making me jump. Do I look like I'm fucking around? Give me a room. My heart was pounding. The binder didn't cover what to do with aggressive guests. I thought about calling Kai, but it was already past 8. My shift now. Let me check again, I said, pretending to type. It seems we may have one room available after all. Room 2. He snorted. That's what I thought. I processed his card and handed him the key, trying to keep my hand from shaking. Checkout is at 11 tomorrow. Whatever. He grabbed the key and turned to leave, then stopped and reached into his pocket. He pulled out a wad of cash, peeled off 3 20s, and tossed them on the counter. "For your trouble," he said with a smirk. "Don't tell your boss." Before I could respond, he walked out, got back in his SUV, and drove down to room 2. I watched on the camera as he grabbed a duffel bag from the back seat and went inside. I stood there for a minute, trying to calm down. I'd broken Rule 8 now, too. 2 rules in one night. I picked up the cash and shoved it in my pocket, not sure what else to do with it. The rest of the evening was quiet. I did my regular checks, answered a few emails, and tried not to think about the rules I'd broken. Around 11, I saw Evelyn's light go out. Bentley's stayed on. At 2:17, the phone rang. My stomach dropped. I stared at it, remembering Rule 11. If the phone rings at exactly 2:17 a.m., answer it but do not speak. Listen for exactly 30 seconds, then hang up. I picked up the receiver and held it to my ear. For 30 seconds, I heard nothing but static and what sounded like water dripping. Then a voice, barely audible. "You know the rules." I hung up, my hand shaking. At 2:30, I started my walkthrough. Everything seemed normal until I reached the hallway near room 2. That's when I heard it. Screaming. Not just any screaming, but the kind that makes your blood freeze. A man's voice, raw with terror. I ran to room 2 and found the door wide open. The lights were on, but the room was empty. No Bentley. His clothes lay shredded on the bed like they'd been torn apart by claws. His wallet and phone were on the nightstand, untouched. And the walls. Jesus. The walls. Scratch marks covered every surface, even the ceiling. Deep gouges in the drywall, like something had been trying to claw its way out, or something had been dragged across every surface. But there was no blood. No sign of a struggle besides the shredded clothes and the scratches. Just an empty room with the TV still on, playing some late-night infomercial. I backed out slowly and closed the door. I should call the police. Or Kai. Someone. But what would I say? A guest disappeared and left claw marks all over the room. I went back to the front desk and checked the security footage. The camera showed Bentley entering room 2 at 8:30. No one came out. No one else went in. The footage outside his door showed nothing unusual until 2:30, when I ran down the hallway to his room. I spent the rest of my shift jumping at every sound, expecting Bentley to reappear or the police to show up. Neither happened. At 8 the next morning, I saw Evelyn Tran loading her suitcase into her car. I watched on the camera as she dropped her key in the drop box and drove away without coming inside. She didn't seem bothered at all, like she hadn't heard the screaming, like nothing unusual had happened. After my shift, I went back to room 2. The door was locked now. I used my master key to open it and found nothing. The room was perfectly clean. No scratch marks, no shredded clothes. The bed was made, the TV off. Like no one had ever been there. I checked the computer. No record of Bentley Hall's check-in. The 320s were still in my pocket, though. That night I felt different when I started my shift. The air in the lobby seemed heavier. I kept seeing movement out of the corner of my eye. And at midnight, when I looked up from the desk, I saw him. The boy with the red backpack. But this time, he wasn't outside. He stood in the corner of the lobby, facing the wall. Perfectly still. I dropped my eyes immediately, remembering Rule 14. My heart hammered in my chest, but I kept working, pretending he wasn't there. When I did my 1 a.m. walkthrough, he was still there. I walked right past him, not looking directly at him, feeling the air thicken around me as I passed. It felt like walking through cold syrup. The worst part came during my 3 a.m. bathroom break. I was washing my hands when I glanced in the mirror and saw my reflection. It was me, but not me. My mouth was moving, forming words I wasn't saying. I froze, watching as my reflection seemed to be having a conversation with someone I couldn't see. I looked over my shoulder. No one there. When I turned back to the mirror, my reflection's lips were still moving, responding to someone. And I realized it was responding to the boy. The boy who was standing in the corner of the lobby, facing the wall, his own lips moving in silent conversation with my reflection. Night 14. I'd been at Still Pines for 2 weeks when I noticed the keys were missing. I was doing my usual check of the lost and found box during my shift. We kept it under the front desk, just a plastic container with a snap-on lid. Nothing fancy. I opened it to log a pair of sunglasses someone had left by the ice machine, and that's when I saw the empty spot where the keys should have been. The keys were distinctive, an old-fashioned brass, set on a faded leather keychain with Room 10 stamped on it. According to the log, they'd been in Lost and Found for 3 years. Rule 19 was specific about them. Items in Lost and Found may be returned to guests who claim them with proper ID, except for the brass keys with leather tag, which must remain in the box. I searched under the desk, thinking maybe they'd fallen out. Nothing. I checked the drawers, the shelves, even got down on my hands and knees to look under the cabinets. The keys were gone. I sat back in the chair, trying to remember if I'd moved them. I hadn't. I hadn't touched them since my first day when I'd cataloged everything in the box. I pulled out my phone and called Kai, but it went straight to voicemail. I left a message about the missing keys, but kept it casual. No need to sound panicked. The rest of my shift was quiet. No guests checked in. No phone calls. Just me flipping through the binder for the 100th time, wondering about those keys. Around 2 in the morning, I was halfway through my walkthrough when I heard a click. I froze in the hallway listening. Another click, followed by a slow creak. It was coming from the east wing. I walked toward the sound, passing rooms 5 and 4. When I reached room 3, I stopped. The door to room 3 was closed, just like always. But as I stood there, I heard another click from further down. Room 2's door was open about 6 inches. I was sure I'd checked it earlier and found it locked. I approached carefully and pushed it open wider. "Hello?" I called into the darkness. No answer. I flipped on the light switch. The room was empty and undisturbed. Bed made, curtains drawn, everything in order. I checked the bathroom too. Empty. I closed the door, making sure it locked behind me. Must have been the wind, I thought, even though there were no open windows. As I turned to continue my rounds, I heard another click behind me. I spun around. Room 2's door was wide open again. My heart jumped. I walked back and checked the room again. Still empty. I closed the door, tested the handle. Locked. I took 3 steps away and heard the click again. This time I turned just in time to see the door swinging open on its own, slow and deliberate. I backed away, my mouth dry. Down the hall, another door opened. Room 5. Then, room 6. Click, creak, click, creak. One by one, every door in the motel began opening and closing. Some swung wide. Others just cracked open an inch or 2 before closing again. I stood frozen in the hallway, watching the doors move on their own. No wind, no drafts, nothing I could explain it with. Then I heard a different sound. The distinctive metallic thunk of room 3's deadbolt sliding open. I turned toward it, my stomach dropping. Room 3's door swung open slowly, revealing a rectangle of perfect darkness. Not just the darkness of an unlit room, this was deeper, like looking into an empty well. And then Easton Pierce stepped out. He looked exactly as he had when I'd last seen him, wearing the same gray suit, except now it was covered in what looked like ash or soot. His face was pale, his eyes fixed straight ahead. "Mr. Pierce?" My voice came out as a whisper. He didn't respond, didn't even glance my way. He just walked past me, his shoes leaving dark smudges on the carpet. I caught a whiff of something acrid as he passed, like burnt plastic. I followed him, keeping my distance. "Mr. Pierce, are you okay?" He walked down the hall toward the lobby, through the front door, and out to the ice machine. I watched through the window as he stood there for a moment, staring at the ice machine. Then he simply vanished. 1 second he was there, the next he wasn't. I ran outside, looking around the parking lot, checking behind the ice machine. Nothing. No footprints in the gravel, no sign he'd ever been there. When I went back inside, all the doors were closed. I checked room 3, locked tight, just like it had been since Pierce disappeared. The phone started ringing as soon as I got back to the desk. I hesitated before answering. "Still Pines Motor Lodge. How can I help you?" Heavy breathing on the line, then a voice I recognized from my previous call. "You let him out." "Who is this?" I demanded. "You broke the rules. Now it's coming for you." The line went dead. I put the phone down, my hand shaking. Less than a minute later, it rang again. I answered. Just breathing this time, deep, rasping breaths. I hung up. It rang again immediately, and again. Sometimes there were threats. "You're next. Watch your back. Time's running out," but mostly just breathing. After the 6th call, I stopped answering. Night 15. I didn't sleep well during the day. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Easton Pierce walking past me, covered in ash. I kept hearing phantom phone rings, jolting me awake. When I got up for my shift, I found the brass keys sitting on my nightstand. I hadn't put them there. I picked them up carefully and brought them back to the lost and found box. That night, the phone rang constantly. I unplugged it around midnight, but somehow it kept ringing. I checked the connection. Definitely unplugged. Still ringing. I was in the bathroom when I noticed my reflection wasn't quite right. I raised my hand to rub my eyes, but my reflection kept its arms at its sides. I froze, and my reflection smiled. A slow, deliberate smile I definitely wasn't making. I backed out of the bathroom, my heart hammering. During my rounds, I kept seeing movement from the corner of my eye. Each time I turned, there was nothing there, but I knew it was the boy with the red backpack. He was following me now, always just out of sight. When I checked the security cameras, I saw something that made my blood run cold. In the footage of the hallway, I could see myself doing my rounds, and right behind me, always a few steps back, was the boy with the red backpack. I couldn't see him when I looked over my shoulder, but there he was on the monitor, following me everywhere. Night 17. I found the tarnished coin in my coffee cup this morning. Yesterday it was under my pillow. The day before, inside my left shoe. I've stopped throwing it away. It just comes back. The boy with the red backpack stands in the corner of the lobby now. I can see him in my peripheral vision, but when I turn to look, he's gone. On the security monitor, though, he's clearly visible, watching me. I haven't slept more than an hour at a time in 3 days. Every time I doze off, the phone rings, or a door slams, or I feel something cold touch my face. Kai hasn't returned my calls. I'm not even sure the messages are going through anymore. Last night, I saw Easton Pierce again. He walked out of room 3, covered in more ash than before, and went to the ice machine. This time, when he disappeared, all the lights in the motel flickered. Night 20. I'm sitting at the front desk, watching the doors open and close on the security monitors. My reflection in the computer screen is smiling while I frown. The phone is ringing. The boy with the red backpack is standing behind me. I can feel him there, but I don't turn around. I know I've broken too many rules. I let Pierce into room 3. I lost the keys from Lost and Found. I stopped answering the 217 call. I've looked directly at the boy with the red backpack. I'm too exhausted to care anymore. My hands shake constantly. I can't remember the last time I ate. The tarnished coin is sitting on the desk in front of me, and I swear it's getting bigger. The door to room 3 is opening again. I can see it on the monitor. Something is coming out, but it's not Easton Pierce this time. It's darker, larger, moving in a way that doesn't seem human. I should run. I should get up right now and walk out of this place. But I'm so tired, and I don't think it would matter anyway. I've broken too many rules to fix. I couldn't take it anymore. The constant ringing phone, the doors opening and closing on their own, my reflection doing things I wasn't. The boy with the red backpack always just at the edge of my vision. I needed answers. I grabbed the black binder from the front desk and headed down the hallway toward room 3. My footsteps echoed against the worn carpet as I passed rooms 5 and 4. I stopped in front of room 3, the door that had been locked since I'd let Pierce in. The door that had opened on its own last night. The tarnished coin sat balanced on the doorknob, like it was waiting for me. I took a deep breath, clutched the binder against my chest, and pushed the door open. The room was dark, but not empty. A figure sat on the edge of the bed, silhouetted by the faint glow of moonlight through the curtains. As my eyes adjusted, I recognized Kai's hunched shoulders. "Mr. Graves?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. Kai reached over and switched on the bedside lamp. The sudden light made me squint. He looked exactly the same as when I'd first met him. Same wire-rimmed glasses, same weathered face, same khaki pants with suspenders. "You've lasted longer than most night managers, Reynolds." His voice was flat, matter-of-fact. I stood in the doorway, not sure if I should enter. "What do you mean?" 3 weeks. Most don't make it past 2 after they start breaking the rules. He gestured to the chair by the small desk. "Sit down." I hesitated, but then stepped inside and sat. The room felt cold, much colder than the hallway. "I don't understand what's happening," I said, placing the binder on my lap. "The phone keeps ringing even when it's unplugged. Doors open by themselves. My reflection." I trailed off, not wanting to sound crazy. Kai nodded slowly. "The motel needs a caretaker. Someone who understands the rules matter, even after breaking them." But I didn't. "You let Pierce into room 3, he cut me off. "You lost the keys from the lost and found. You stopped answering the 217 call, and you looked directly at the boy with the red backpack." I swallowed hard. "How do you know all that?" "Because the motel knows, and the motel tells me." A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. "The previous managers, they didn't quit, did they?" Kai's expression didn't change. "No." "What happened to them?" "They became part of the motel's ecosystem." He adjusted his glasses. "Like Easton Pierce. Like the boy with the red backpack." My heart pounded against my ribs. The boy. Who is he? His name was Lance Daniel. Night manager 1987. Smart kid. College student working summers. Thought the rules were stupid. Kai's voice remained emotionless. Broke Rule 14 himself. Tried to help another boy he saw in the parking lot. That boy wasn't real. Lance has been trying to warn every manager since. I felt sick. And Pierce? Corporate inspector, real one, but he broke Rule 6 when he insisted on entering room 3. The binder felt heavy on my lap. I'd read it so many times, memorized every rule, but I never understood why they existed. "What about you?" I asked. A flicker of something, maybe sadness, crossed Kai's face before disappearing. "I was the night manager once. A long time ago." "How long?" 1972. I did the math. "That's 51 years. He nodded. "I made the same mistakes you did. But I was given a choice, just like I'm giving you now." The lamp flickered, casting strange shadows across the room. "What choice?" "Leave now. Walk away. Never come back." Kai's eyes locked with mine. "Or stay and learn why the rules exist. Why this place needs guarding." I looked toward the door. The coin was now balanced on the inside doorknob, impossibly perched on its edge. My reflection in the dresser mirror showed someone who looked like me but wasn't quite right. The eyes too wide, the posture too stiff. And there, standing just outside in the hallway, was the boy with the red backpack. Lance Daniel. His mouth moved rapidly, but I couldn't hear what he was saying. "What happens if I leave?" I asked. "You go back to your life. Eventually, the dreams stop. The boy fades from your memory. You convince yourself this was all stress and sleep deprivation. And if I stay?" Kai stood up slowly, his joints cracking. "Then you become like me, the caretaker." I thought about my empty bank account, the apartment I'd lost before coming here, the lack of references or prospects. What life was I going back to exactly? "There's something here, isn't there? Something under the motel." The words came out before I could stop them. Kai nodded. "Something ancient, something hungry. And the rules keep it sleeping. The rules keep it satisfied." Kai walked to the window and pulled back the curtain slightly. "When they're broken, it takes payment. People like Easton, like Bentley Hall." I remembered Bentley's shredded clothes, the scratches on the walls, the way he'd disappeared without a trace. "Why me?" I asked. "Why offer me this choice?" "Because you kept following the rules even after breaking them. You tried to make it right. That's rare." Kai turned back to me. "The motel chooses its own keepers." I looked down at the binder, then at the coin still balanced on the doorknob, then at my wrong reflection, and finally at Lance Daniel standing silently in the doorway. I understood now. This wasn't just a job. It was a responsibility, a duty to keep whatever lived beneath the Still Pines Motor Lodge from waking up completely, from taking more people. "What do I need to do?" I asked finally. The corner of Kai's mouth turned up slightly, the closest thing to a smile I'd seen from him. "Read the binder again. There's a section at the back you haven't found yet. It explains everything." I flipped to the back of the binder and noticed for the first time a slight bulge in the cover. I ran my fingers along the edge and found a hidden pocket. Inside was a folded piece of yellowed paper. "That's the original deed to the property," Kai said. "Read it carefully. And then you become the new keeper of the rules." Kai walked toward the door, pausing next to Lance, who stepped aside. "I'll be in room 10 if you need me." I looked down at the paper in my hands, then back up at Kai. "Room 10? But that's been closed since 1972. He nodded. "That's right." As Kai walked out, the coin fell from the doorknob and landed on the carpet with a dull thud. I picked it up. It felt warm now, not cold like before. I slipped it into my pocket and unfolded the deed. I was staying. I didn't have much choice, really. But more than that, I understood now why the rules mattered, why this place needed someone who would follow them. I was the new keeper of Still Pines Motor Lodge, and I had work to do. I woke up on the floor of the laundry room. My neck hurt from sleeping against a washing machine, and my mouth was dry. Took me a minute to remember how I got there. Last thing I recalled was sitting in room 3, reading the deed, then feeling dizzy. Must have wandered in here somehow. I stood up, stretching my back. My head felt weirdly clear, like someone had wiped a foggy window clean. The constant buzzing that had filled my ears for days was gone. No ringing phones, no doors opening and closing by themselves, just the normal hum of the vending machines down the hall. I splashed some water on my face in the utility sink and checked my watch. Just after 8 a.m. My shift was over, but I didn't feel tired. Actually felt better than I had in weeks. When I stepped out into the hallway, Kai was standing there. "Good morning," he said. "Sleep well?" "Found me in the laundry room, huh?" He nodded. The motel does that sometimes, moves people where they need to be. I should have found that creepy, but it made a weird kind of sense now. "You ready?" he asked. "For what?" "Your education." He pulled out his keys. "Got a lot to show you today." We started in the lobby. Kai pulled back the carpet in front of the desk, revealing a concrete floor with markings carved into it. Looked like a compass rose, but with symbols I didn't recognize etched into each point. Foundation seal, Kai said. There's one under each room. They keep things contained. What things? He just looked at me. You read the deed. I had. The original deed from 1928 wasn't a normal property document. It was more like a contract, with language about binding the threshold and maintaining the barrier. The land wasn't purchased. It was claimed as a containment site. So there's something under the motel, I said. Not exactly under it. More like adjacent to it. This place sits on a thin spot between here and somewhere else. The motel keeps the boundary intact. He rolled the carpet back and stood up. That's why the rules matter. Each one reinforces a different part of the boundary. We moved through the motel room by room. Kai showed me the markings under each carpet, explaining how they connected to specific rules. Room 5's markings corresponded to the cleaning procedures. Room 2's connected to who could stay there. What happens when a rule gets broken? I asked. The boundary weakens. Things start bleeding through. You've seen it. Doors opening. Reflections moving wrong. The phone ringing when it shouldn't. I nodded. And Lance? The boy with the red backpack? He broke Rule 14, the rule about not acknowledging certain things. What's on the other side pulled him halfway through. Now he's caught between, a warning to others. Can he be helped? Kai shook his head. He's part of the motel now, part of the system. We stopped outside room 3. Kai unlocked it, and we stepped inside. The room looked ordinary in the daylight. Just another motel room with faded wallpaper and a sagging mattress. This is the thinnest point, Kai said. The membrane between worlds is barely there. That's why we keep it empty. What about Pierce? The inspector? He's on the other side now. Sometimes things come through. Sometimes people go through. The boundary works both ways. Kai knelt down and pulled back the carpet, revealing markings that were deeper and more complex than the others. This is the primary seal. If it fails, everything fails. He showed me how to check it, how to feel for weak spots. It was strange. I could actually sense them now, like cold drafts where there shouldn't be any. We spent hours going over everything. How to reset broken rules. How to strengthen weak points in the boundary. Kai showed me a hidden compartment in the desk, where he kept special items, chalk made from bone, salt from a specific mine in Utah, iron nails that had been struck by lightning. Tools of the trade, he said. By late afternoon, we'd covered most of the property. My head was swimming with information, but unlike before, it all made sense. I could feel the motel now, like it was an extension of myself, could sense its rhythms, its weak points, its needs. What about the coin? I asked. The one that keeps showing up? A warning system. When rules break, it appears. The worse things get, the more it changes, gets colder, smells stronger. And the phone calls? Same thing. Different warning system. We ended up back at the front desk as the sun was setting. Kai checked his watch. Almost 8. Your shift's about to start. I nodded, feeling strangely ready. So what now? You said you were leaving. I'll check in occasionally, make sure you're handling things. But the motel's yours now. He handed me a set of keys, not my work keys, but his personal set. You're the keeper. Just like that? Just like that. The motel chose you, even after you broke the rules. That means something. He grabbed a small bag I hadn't noticed before and headed for the door. One last thing, he said, turning back. Fix what you broke. Retrieve the keys. Restore room 3's seal. The boundaries need strengthening. And then he was gone. I watched through the window as he got into his truck and drove away, taillights disappearing down the road. I stood there for a minute, taking it all in. The motel felt different now, alive in a way I couldn't explain. I could sense every room, every door, every mark under the carpets. I knew without checking that no guests were currently staying. When I turned around, Lance was standing in the corner, his red backpack bright against the wall. I didn't look directly at him, but I didn't need to. I understood now. He was both warning and guardian, caught between worlds to serve as a reminder of what happens when rules break. "I get it now," I said quietly, not addressing him directly. His presence felt less threatening, more like a familiar part of the place. He remained in my peripheral vision as I went about setting up for my shift. First things first, I needed to fix what I broke. I went to the supply closet and found the tarnished coin sitting on a shelf. I picked it up, feeling its weight, and slipped it into my pocket. Next, I checked the laundry room, looking behind machines and under folding tables. Found the brass keys with room 10 stamped on the leather tag wedged behind the dryer. I brought them back to the lobby and placed them carefully in the lost and found box. As soon as they settled in, I felt something shift in the motel, a tension releasing, like a sigh of relief. Around 9, the front door opened, and a woman walked in pulling a rolling suitcase, my first guest since taking over. "Hi there," she said. "Do you have any rooms available for tonight?" "Yes, we do." I smiled, feeling a new confidence. I pulled up the registration system. "Just need your ID and a credit card." She handed them over. "Barbara Nichols, from Oregon." I checked her in, following every step precisely. Room 7 was the right one for her. I somehow just knew it. "Checkout is at 11 a.m., I told her, handing over the key. "Let me know if you need anything at all." She thanked me and headed to her room. I watched her on the security monitor as she walked down the hallway, stopping exactly where she should, unlocking the door without trouble. The motel accepted her. She belonged. Throughout the night, I completed my regular tasks with a new understanding. Each walkthrough wasn't just checking for problems, it was reinforcing the boundary. Each note in the logbook wasn't just record-keeping, it was reaffirming the motel's place in this world. I stopped by room 3 around midnight. The door was firmly closed, the lock secure. I placed my hand on the wood, feeling the energy humming behind it. The seal needed strengthening. I took out the piece of chalk Kai had given me and carefully traced over the symbols on the door frame, subtle marks most people would never notice. As I finished the last line, the wood grew warm under my fingers, then cooled. The boundary was holding. Lance appeared a few times during my shift, standing silently in corners or at the end of hallways. I acknowledged his presence without looking directly at him, a slight nod, a quiet word. "I see you. I understand." He was part of the warning system, like the coin and the phone calls. Not a threat, but a reminder. When my shift ended at 8 a.m., I did one final walkthrough. Everything was in order. The guest in room 7 was sleeping soundly. The boundaries were secure. The motel was at peace. I returned to room 8, my room, and sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time since I arrived at Still Pines, I felt like I belonged. This strange place, with its rules and boundaries, was now my responsibility, my purpose. I laid down and closed my eyes. No phantom phone rings disturbed me. No footsteps echoed in the hallway. No doors opened and closed on their own. I slept soundly, dreamlessly, accepting my role as protector of this strange place.